All right. Okay. All right. So welcome, everyone. We're so glad you can make it. Thank you for making the time to be here. I'm Talia. I'm the Content and Community Manager here at Hugo Health Kindred. You probably already knew that by now. For those of you who don't know about Kindred, who may have heard about this event on social media, Kindred is building a network of data-enabled people who have been impacted by COVID and who want to contribute to research in partnership with leading scientists. I strongly encourage anyone who is not a member yet to join us. You can go to kindred.hugo.health for more information. And it is from there that you can enroll in the Yale Listen study led by Drs. Iwasaki and Krumholtz, as well as the PAX trial for people with long COVID that is currently screening on Kindred. If you have questions about any of that, please reach out to me at talia@hugo.health, and I will help answer your questions or direct you to the correct person for that. I'm going to throw my contact information in the chat as soon as I am done speaking. So today is a fireside chat. It is a laid back conversation with our patient advocate task force. Today we have 4 members on the panel. We have Nicole, we have Nick, we have Jamie, and we have Cynthia. So to start the conversation, they're going to go around and just share about their stories. And then after that, we're going to open up the floor to all of you. So if you have a question for anyone on the task force about anything that they have said about treatments they've tried or doctors that they have had success with or support or anything that they say, if you have a question, then you can just raise your little emoji hand on Slack on Zoom, and we'll unmute you and then you can ask your question. But if you just have something you want to say, if you don't have a question, if you have something you want to get off your chest or just anything that you want to have a conversation about, that is also welcome in this space. I do have to say that we are not medical professionals. We are not offering medical advice or, saying this is going to help do this. We have, this is just pure support and advice that we are offering today. So we do ask that you ask your doctor or any provider that you are seeing before you try anything that, any of the task force members have talked about. We also ask that if you are speaking today that you keep it to under 5 minutes, please. If you go further than that or go longer than that, I will cut you off. And I hate doing that because it makes me feel rude. So please just keep an eye on the time. And let me see if I have any. Yeah, I think that's it for now. I will be keeping an eye on the chat today. But if you have technical questions about Kindred, again, I ask that you reach out to me and I will post my email address in the chat in a second. And without further ado, I will hand it off to the task force members. So we'll start with Nicole. Nicole, if you'd like to share your story.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Some of you might already know my story. My name is Nicole. I am 55 years old and I live in New York City. And I am vaccine injured. Prior to getting the vaccine, I was very healthy, never sick, hadn't had the flu in 30 years, was a vegan, former marathon runner, hiking every weekend, like 10 to 15 miles with my husband. And I'm trained as a clinical psychiatric social worker, and I was working for an health insurance company, very fast-paced, high-pressure job. So it was very functional. And then in April of 2021, April 2nd, I received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and had no immediate side effects, not even a sore arm. And about 6 days later, I noticed a metallic taste in my mouth. And while I was on a hike upstate New York with my husband, I felt severe burning bilaterally in both arms. And it felt like the worst sunburn that I've ever had, but my arms weren't red. So I proceeded to contact my primary care physician. And if any of you remember, about 10 days after that, around April 13th, I believe it was, the Janssen or Johnson & Johnson vaccine was paused. So I flipped out and said, please check my platelets. I thought I was going to die of a blood clot. And what happened is my labs were normal. I didn't die of a blood clot, but the neuropathy progressed, had numbness in my hands and my feet, uncontrollable myoclonic jerks, lots of confusion. I couldn't remember my sister-in-law's name. I couldn't remember my husband's niece's names, a lot of disorientation. visual disturbances, flashes of light, floaters, extreme fatigue. I lost 17 pounds in about a month. I'm better than I was. My diagnoses now, I'm still searching for a lot of them. What my diagnoses are is they gave me chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME/CFS, polyneuropathy with a rule out of small fiber neuropathy. I had a skin biopsy that was negative, so they can't officially say I have small fiber neuropathy, but it is suspected. More recently, they're going for a diagnosis of immune mediated small fiber neuropathy because I tested positive for some autoimmune markers. So, waiting to follow up my neurologist for that. POTS, which is post orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Um, what else? PTSD, polyneuropathy, I said, cognitive dysfunctions, memory issues. That's just really the tip of the iceberg that a convergence disorder where my eyes can't focus, so it's difficult for me to read. And what has helped me, I don't really know. I'm still searching for solutions. And what has helped me, I think, is diet, autoimmune protocol diet, anti-inflammatory, no gluten, no dairy, very sensitive to sugar, very sensitive to alcohol. So that's something. Sleep, meditation, walking, yoga. That's really LDN, low dose naltrexone. That's been what's really toned down a lot of my symptoms, like internal vibrations. I didn't say that one. That's a big one. So that's my short story.
Thank you, Nicole. Jamie, if you'd like to share your story.
Sure. Hi, my name is Jamie. I'm 39 years old. I live on Long Island in New York, and I am also considered vaccine injured. Before my vaccine, I had no prior medical conditions. In fact, I was very healthy, very active. I was not a marathon runner, but I enjoyed walking and doing active things. I am a teacher, so as soon as I was eligible for the vaccine, I got it right away. So it was January of 21 that I got the vaccine, and then February of 21, I got my second vaccine, and that's when I had a pretty bad reaction that night. I woke up in the middle of the night feeling I was going to be sick and kind of just woke up on the floor. So I'm not really sure what happened to me because everybody was sleeping. I called for my husband. He came over to help me, and my body was just sweating like profusely. And like I had 105 fever. I drank some Gatorade. I went back into bed, and the next day I really just couldn't walk. I felt like I had the flu. My body felt very, very heavy, and that lasted about 2 days, and then I was better. And I thought I was fine, and I went to work and continued my routine. And I can't really tell you the exact time when I started to get sick, but 3 weeks later, I was in my doctor's office saying that I felt like I had vertigo. So I felt like when I was driving, I felt very dizzy and the cars were passing me and I just couldn't focus on the car in front of me. I felt like when I would take a step that like I was actually stepping down, but there was no step. So I knew something was very wrong. And the doctor, they said maybe it's mild vertigo and kind of sent me on my way. But nothing was really getting better. In fact, things were getting worse. I actually at that point started to get very weak in the arm where I got my shot, and I could not move my left arm. I couldn't shut the window in my classroom. I couldn't lift my children. I couldn't hold my lunchbox. My arms were just giving out. And then I started to get a whole slew of other symptoms. I did write them down because a lot of my issues are neurological. I had extreme fatigue Like I could not, I would work, but then sit down. And when I would get home from work, I went straight into bed. Extreme brain fog, which at the time I didn't realize it was brain fog. Extreme cognitive issues. I had absolutely no short-term memory. I would be in the shower and wash my face and then not even know if I washed my face. So I would wash it again. I did write all this stuff down because this is a skill that I've learned throughout my journey, that I need to write everything down. I lost my car several times, so I would park and not know where I parked my car and walk around the parking lots looking for it. I have driven the wrong way to pick up my children. Thank goodness, not the wrong way on the street, but just went the wrong direction. I would let my dog out and then not remember that I let my dog out. And then I would see my dog at my back door. I would put dishwasher soap in the dishwasher and not realize how to shut the thing that would make the dishwasher run. So that was my cognitive issues. I had dizziness. I had muscle and joint pain. I had rashes all over my arms, and that would start on my face, go down my arms and my legs. I had vision issues. I also have convergence issues. My eyes do not line up. I had extreme thirst, dry eyes. The right side of my neck was extremely tight and painful. I thought maybe I had a stroke or something. I have an irregular EKG. I lost my sense of smell. I could somewhat smell. I have Raynaud's, where my fingers and feet turn purple and are extremely cold. I have poor blood circulation, tissue damage, and an extremely high spike protein. I've been diagnosed with long COVID, post-exertional melanase, MCAS, which is mast cell activation syndrome. And because I have a positive ANA, they call it some sort of unknown autoimmune disease. In saying all of that, I have been to a slew of doctors, some which gaslighted me and told me this was all anxiety, and some that have really helped me. I've been to rheumatologists, neurologists, cardiologists, neuropsychologists, neuro-ophthalmologists, sleep study doctors, hepatologists, because my liver was off for a long time. I've also tried many therapies: vestibular therapy, vision therapy, physical therapy, cognitive rehab, neuron up therapy, and I've pretty much been tested for everything. And my tests were not completely normal. There were some abnormalities. Nothing really seemed to help anything. I tried everything, all the therapies. More recently, I've also tried a plant-based diet. More recently, I found a doctor who tests and treats for microclots. So I am one of his patients. I have been seeing him for about 5 months. And that to me gave me part of my life back, because I thought that I was going to be living like I was forever, and not have a brain and not be able to do anything with my family. And this doctor has allowed me to wake up most days without brain fog, which to me is just a win in itself. I am on oxygen at night, every night, which is a hard thing to swallow for me because I'm young and I teach and I have kids, but if it makes me feel better, I'm willing to do it. And I'm on triple therapy and a slew of supplements. So I know my journey is not over, but I'm thankful that I am feeling better.
Thank you, Jamie. And everyone, I actually shared a link to an article we posted on Kindred a few months ago. Jamie shared her story in a bit more detail. So if you want to learn more about her journey, you can click on that link. And next we have Cynthia.
Hello, everyone. I see a lot of new faces, so I will go and tell my story. I got sick, long COVID from the first wave in March 2020. I was very mild COVID for everyone in my family, but I knew it was COVID because we all were sick, even though we did not have any traditional symptoms at that time. No cough, no fever, no shortness of breath. So it was denied testing. And then a few months into it, so in about May, Mother's Day of 2020, I bit into my Mother's Day meal, starting having all these reactions in my mouth, tingling, tightness, couldn't swallow. And then I got dizzy. My heart rate was just crazy. My blood pressure, I didn't know at the time, was like, my vision was blurry. I really felt like I was having a heart attack, and it was very scary. Um, and so I went to the ER. Of course, they said it was anxiety. Why would they not, right? Even though I told them that I'm an introvert. We're in a shutdown. One, haven't been anywhere. Two, this is like the first vacation I've ever had in 5 years with having a small child. So something to be anxious about. I'm living the introvert dream, having like my favorite snacks that like delivered to me for the first time, like my favorite restaurants that I have to go in. And so I was actually living the introvert dream at the time, which is why try to gaslight me. I did not. It's like, no, this is not it. And so I went and had just kept having more and more reactions to food, and to the point where I went into starvation. I started reacting to more and more foods. I couldn't tolerate any food at all. Started to literally die of starvation. They kept telling me it is either some allergy or anxiety, and I'm like, how do I develop an allergy to everything and extend it to water eventually, that fast? Like, that's crazy. There's something going on here. This isn't normal. And I was met with apathy, and I had a lot of hospitalizations from starvation, dehydration. I was dying. I lost, I think, 40 pounds in 5 months, something around there. And so I knew I was dying, and I didn't have a name to it. And that time, long COVID didn't have a name. I stumbled on a post about other people that were sick from COVID that didn't recover, and I saw their stories, and I was like, oh, that's what it is. But at that time, I tested for antibodies. It came back negative. So even though I was starving to death, couldn't put a name to it, the doctors kept telling me there's nothing wrong with you. They kept saying I have anorexia, and I was psychosomatic, and it got to the point where I lost my mobility, and even after losing my mobility and I was having my oxygen drop, the local hospital decided to have me removed by security. One night when I was seeing my pulse oximeter drop, my oxygen was dropping in the 80s. It was really, really scary. I didn't want to go to sleep, and my heart rate was high. And they decided they weren't going to monitor me or anything. They're going to escort me out for with security, and they did. And I definitely experienced hypoxia and really bad brain damage from the hypoxia that I was exposed to. We also know now that people with brown skin also, even with those monitors, were not getting proper measurements. So my oxygen was probably a lot lower to that, which is why I still continue to struggle with memory loss. Even today, as you can see, my processing is back. My comprehension is back. I can write. I write a lot of things for you. Go help Kindred. That about the things that I've learned along the way. I've now been diagnosed with dysautonomia, ME/CFS. It really was the ME/CFS community that helped me learn terms of what my illnesses are. I'm diagnosed with mast cell activation syndrome. I'm diagnosed with multiple chemical sensitivity, also known as environmental tolerance, which means I now have anaphylaxis reaction to smells too. Yay! Now, you would think that that would be the end of my story. Yay, hooray. No. This summer when the Canadian wildfires happened, it flared me really bad, and my son, who has long COVID, and to the point where I developed a rare sleep disorder, and I almost died in my sleep several times. With all these diagnoses, my local hospital would actually give me care. That's incorrect. They also had me escorted out by security again, in spite of the fact that I still am very, very ill. The nurse on my notes said I had an aggressive tone as to why they escorted me out in cold red air quality, knowing that I react to air badly on a good day and require air purifiers just to live, and I'm mostly homebound on a good day. So I almost died unnecessarily this summer multiple times. And as I am going through these struggles, World Health Kindred has been phenomenal at putting some heat on my hospital to make sure that they can get it together. But also, I've really ramped up developing resources for patients on some of these rare illnesses. Some really detailed information on how to get through this. So definitely check out the website. We'll be seeing more and more of that. And I am here for every day that I am alive, happy and available to patients to answer questions, especially concerning what we rarely talk about in this space, which is mast cell activation syndrome and any kind of reactions to food or air. If anyone knows it, it is I. I still survive on maybe like 6 foods on a good day, and spent the last 2 years surviving on just 2 foods. So I've created some very creative workarounds to surviving this illness with very little resources, and knowing that my local hospital basically wants to incarcerate me the second I step there for emergency care. So I'm here to help you all so you don't end up in my situation, and I really am. And I also work with a bunch of researchers now to help create cures and stuff to help us all not have to keep going in this vicious cycle of being passed around from physician to physician.
Thank you, Cynthia. And next we have Nick.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nick. I got the Pfizer shot in early April 2021. So it's actually been just about 2.5 years, surprisingly. So when I got that, I developed small fiber neuropathy, very much like a Guillain-Barré type of reaction. A lot of the stuff that everybody else has already mentioned, so neurological problems. Right now, 2.5 years later, I'm doing very well. I live a fairly normal life. I tried a lot of things, and one of the things I've really found is that the things that work for some people don't work for other people. That's just like 100% of the time. That is, well, say that correctly, but that's definitely a correct statement with all things. It's very strange, but that's how it happens to be. So I've talked to so many people. What works for me doesn't work for them, vice versa, even though we have a lot of the same stuff. As somebody mentioned in the chat, it is very parallel to what happens with long COVID. There's some kind of neurological toxin that runs through the body, something that happens there. So, but for me, I'll try to keep it short. Basically, I tried a lot of things. The things that ended up helping me most were because I was diagnosed with small fiber neuropathy and had some autoantibodies related to it, specifically FGFR3. I did about a year of IVIG infusions. For me, that worked very well. I also took fluvoxamine, which is part of the FLCCC was saying that there was some long COVID benefits to that. So I didn't want to go on that because that's a pill that you're on for a while. There's withdrawal to it. But I took that about 7-8 months in, and it helped a lot of strange brain zaps I was getting. So there was some kind of serotonin, I guess, mess up that happened there. So it helped me, I feel like with some of the autonomic stuff and a lot of the nerve pain, it actually calmed down. The IVIG then helped with a lot of the weakness, and I was having like limb swelling, the erythromelalgia, skin turning red, just crazy stuff, vision, pretty much every part of the body. So that's been my journey with that. I was lucky enough to find a good doctor in Connecticut who was able to do the right testing. Same as all of you, doctor to doctor, nobody wanted to touch it, especially back then. So they were able to find the small fiber, did the treatments, and I've made pretty big progress. So I live a normal life, and no one would ever know this strange world that we've all been thrown into of having gone through this. So I know some of you on this panel, and probably a lot of you in here, have various degrees of recovery, maybe not at all. I've talked to people all over the place, and some get better, some don't, some find things. There's a lot of people still trying to figure out what's going to help them. So I'm still kind of in this community researching stuff and figuring it out. But that's a quick version of my story. And actually, one last thing, I just found out, if you Google, does Pfizer vaccine cause small fiber neuropathy? It turns out that my case is the first result. So I currently hold that terrible title. So if you look that up, the NIH article comes up about small fiber neuropathy with FGFR3 from the COVID vaccine. My doctor put that up about my case, and that's currently up there. So that's also a big step in recognizing this too, where originally you couldn't even talk about this, that there's articles up on the NIH about these specific cases. So that is that's about it. So
Thank you, Nick. All right, and now we are opening up the floor to all of you. So if you have something that you want to talk about or a question you want to ask the task force, please go ahead. And we have a question. Peg, we will unmute you as soon as we find you. Where is she?
Hello, I'm Peg Seminario. Good to meet all of you. I've been following the work on Kindred, and then I've been, trying to figure out like how to come at all this. And so my short story is that I retired 4 years ago. I had a very high-powered job, still being involved. I was a health and safety director at the AFL-CIO and stayed involved in COVID issues with the healthcare unions over time, trying to deal with protections for healthcare workers, and went through my vaccine series. And then last year, October, the bivalent vaccine came out, and they said, well, mix and match. So I did the Moderna vaccine. Prior to that, I had some reactions to vaccine, not awful, but breaking out into hives with shingles. And with one of the COVID vaccines, which was Pfizer before that, had broken out into a small herpes infection, which they said, yeah, it was probably related to that. Well, then last year, I did my bivalent, and then a week later, I did my flu because I didn't want to get them at the same time. And then about a week later, I started getting this numbness and tingling in my legs. Saw my doc and said, well, and I have a lot of stenosis in my spine, a lot of problems here. So anyway, and so they gave me gabapentin. I took that. So if you want to go see the neurologist, I saw the neurologist. They did some additional RMI. I said, no, stenosis is causing all of your problems. But the other weird thing, and I don't know if anybody's had this, that happened at the same time, and back when we went first to the doc, was my blood pressure was really high, really, really high. And I've always had low blood pressure. They said, well, your blood pressure is really high. I said, no, I have low blood pressure. So this, has continued and has not gotten better. It's gotten worse. And now the tingling, now I've got fasciculations and they're sort of everywhere, particularly at night, it's difficult, sleeping. And what seems to set it off for me, and it's both a combination of the blood pressure, the fasciculations, and now the brain fog, and also the memory problems. So I was just scary. Is particularly any kind of focused activity, like when I'm on a Zoom call or meeting with my friends, like doing work, nothing that I didn't do for 40 years of my work life here, like for an hour. My blood pressure goes, like last weekend, I was on a call, we're planning a workshop on some, aerosol transmissible diseases. And I got off and I thought, weird afterwards, get off and I take my blood pressure, it's 187/102, and I can't get it down, which is freaky. And so it goes up and most of the time I can get it down. So, and I'm a Kaiser member, so I'm limited in terms of my doctor pool. I've been doing acupuncture, which seems to help. But one of the things is that my husband also has got severe COPD. I've never had COVID, nor has he, so thank God. But I'm trying to figure out right now, do I dare ever get another vaccine, which I haven't done. And so, because I certainly don't want to get COVID. So if anybody has any advice, if they've done a vaccine after having had a vaccine reaction, that would be really helpful to know. My doctor right now, my GP, has been great. I mean, she's been trying to help me out. She said, I don't know. And I send her stuff, and, the neurologist, nice lady, but, she thinks it's my stenosis. So, but it's like all of you, it's very frustrating. And I consider myself to be a thoughtful, rational human being, not get like excited about everything, just some things. And, and after a while you begin to feel like you're crazy because like, you keep exploring and additional symptoms just keep popping up. So any thoughts that people have either on the blood pressure piece of it or getting an additional vaccine would be wonderful. So thank you all so much for sharing. I mean, it's really comforting, really, really comforting to, to be with people who are going through the same thing. So thanks.
I actually do have some comments on that, on people getting a vaccine after vaccine injury and, different vaccine. And it seems to be kind of almost like the treatment. It goes both ways. So I've seen people get other vaccines and have no problem. I've seen people get a vaccine and end up, it kind of just ramps up the same thing again. So at least I know of some people where like they had these issues from flu vaccines in the past, similar to small fiber neuropathy. They get the COVID shot and then it all blows up again. So either they're very unlucky or there's some kind of genetic component going on there. So, but no one could really tell you. So then other people have had those issues. I actually haven't. I found this out later on because people don't talk about this kind of stuff. But I found out that I have some family members in the past that had reactions to flu shots years ago, were told never get vaccines, and they didn't. Since then, they just avoided it. When this one came around, they got like 5 COVID shots, and he's totally fine. So I don't know what to say about that, but then other people have had this issue from shots, then it happens again. So it probably has to do with maybe the state that your immune system's in at the time. I'm not really sure, but it does go, both scenarios happen. For me, after what I went through, I'm certainly not going to be getting any more. I just can't, there's just no way having small fiber neuropathy from a vaccine to get another immune stimulating, and mine's immune mediated. So to get another immune stimulating thing for me, I'm going to avoid that. And I noticed too, like with when I get allergies and things that affect my immune system, everything kind of flares back up. So I'm anything that taps my immune system, weird stuff happens. So personally, I just won't get any more shots. And I always did my whole life. I never had problems like this, but I'm done now. So that's it for me. Don't know what happened, but I'm not doing it again.
Gotcha. So, well, thank you.
Not medical advice, of course, but
yeah, I'm just going for other people's experiences, which tend to be the most helpful, right? I mean, doctors aren't particularly helpful.
And it's hard too, because I've talked to so many people in the beginning where everybody's looking for this exact thing, where it's like, okay, this person had this reaction, they have it again, and you start to try to figure it out, and then you always find a scenario that completely goes the other way. So it's really hard to pin down any specific thing. I think there probably is some genetic components to it, something going on there. A lot of people I've met, including myself, always said we're very sensitive to medications our whole life. I don't know, that's not really a measurable thing, but it seems to be pretty common. I'm always that way too. Most medications, they hit me pretty good. So maybe it's just too much for my body. Maybe it's something that simple. But I want to grab a couple of these questions out that were said earlier in the chat.
I'm gonna jump in because Peg, there was a question for you. So Ellen asked Peg, who is your GP at Kaiser and what town is that Kaiser in? And then she said Kaiser has done nothing for her.
So I was just responding to it in the chat, but I was listening to Nick as well at the same time. Multitasking is hard. So I'm in Maryland and the Mid-Atlantic in Kaiser here. And my GP, I go to the Kensington Center here, is Andrea Stevenson, who's been wonderful and been trying to help. But I mean, Kaiser has gotten really bad. I mean, they were bad, they weren't great, but they were better. And now they are so backed up. Getting appointments is really, really hard. And so, so I'm now trying to think about where else I could go. But my pension benefits and my retiree health care comes through there. So I'm trying to weigh paying more money with being, getting financial support. So anyway, but thanks. One other just point here. My sister has MS. She had a bad case of mono when she was a teenager. I had a really, really, really bad case of mono, and so wondering as well about Epstein-Barr virus, reactivation going on here. So I just throw that back out there for folks. All right, but thank you very much. Very helpful.
Thank you for sharing. And then Nick, if you wanted to read off some questions.
Yeah, somebody had mentioned early on asking about the triple therapy and which doctor that was. I think that was towards you, Jamie, if you want to explain anything else about that.
It's Dr. Jordan Bond. He's in Alabama. I found him by doing research on the internet, and I checked in with my rheumatologist in New York City, who gave me 2 thumbs up, and who also contacted, I also contacted this group of moodifiers that I was in, who contacted Dr. David Petrino, who also gave me the heads up to go see him. He sends you the microclot test in the mail. You need someone to take your blood. Then you mail it back to him, and then you set up a meeting to meet with him, and you meet every 3 weeks for 3 months with either him or somebody in his practice, like a PA. The triple therapy, I actually needed to go back into my notes, consists of anti-platelets, blood thinners, and anti-acid. So for me, it was Eliquis, baby aspirin, let me look. Eliquis, aspirin, Plavix, and at that time he also had put me on famotidine, which is an antiplatelet.
Nice. Somebody had also asked any suggestions for cognitive rehab, and I do want to say somebody commented here, Gaylord in Wallingford, North Haven, Connecticut. That's where I'm from. So I'm from North Haven, next to that. So I don't know. Yeah, Wallingford or North Haven. So that's actually my territory there, and that might be. I don't know if that's Dr. Kaplan, but I know he runs a long COVID clinic over there. So that one was suggested. I don't know if anybody else has any suggestions for cognitive rehab. Someone also asked about POTS doctors, if anybody has any good POTS doctors to recommend, either in person or remotely. It's a really big one that's been coming up for people with both of these illnesses.
Cognitive rehab, if I just got an evaluation for cognitive rehab, and oddly enough, I aced the test for my evaluation. I was having a good day. I'm like, what? I barely know my name some days, but New York Presbyterian in New York City, they have a cognitive rehab program. It's part of their occupational therapy program. So if anybody has an occupational therapist or a hospital occupational therapy program, cognitive rehab is usually under that umbrella. And I know Vanderbilt University, I believe they might be able to, in Tennessee, may be able to link people to cognitive rehab. Dr. Jim Jackson did a Zoom for Kindred, I think a couple of weeks ago, and he mentioned that, and speech language pathologist could also help with that, according to what he said in one of our last meetings. So that's just my input. So I don't know if it works or not, because I haven't done it yet. I only had an intake, but I'm hopeful.
I was just going to jump
clearing
in.
the fog. There we go. Rebecca's holding up the book. I downloaded it. I did not read it yet, but it's next on my list.
I saw Dr. William Zhang, TSANG, for 3 months every week through NYU for cognitive rehab, and he was incredible. He actually, I feel like, got my head to where it needed to be so that I can continue getting better help, because I couldn't even process getting the help. So I would recommend him.
Jamie, can you put his name in the chat? Someone's asking. I guess it's easier. Thank you. And then we have some hands up. So I'm going to call on Christy. I know your hand's been up for a while, so let me unmute you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So I really appreciate hearing everybody's story. I am vaccine injured by Moderna shot in March 2021. My story was really similar to the first and the last. So I don't want to repeat stuff, but I just want to say, um, the cognitive issues are very real, and speech and cognitive therapy has helped me a lot. I'm in the Boston area. Took me a really long time to get into Brigham and Women's Long COVID Clinic, but once I did, that's where the only medication I ever found that helped me was low dose naltrexone. And I know people have varied reactions to it, but between that and cognitive therapy, and because I was without doctors that could tell me anything, passing around and nobody had any ideas, I found meditation, and I went as holistic as possible, and yoga and breath work. And I just wanted to share, because I thought it was really, I'm glad that they're funding this, is that I just got word that Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston, they just got funding and regulatory approval for a mind-body study related to long COVID and recovery, which I think is really amazing, because, I was without any answers or any kind of treatment for 2 years, really. And I was in a pretty dark place, like my spleen was swollen, like I was pregnant for like 5 months. I couldn't wear anything with elastic waistband. And, it was a lot of real, like I had a fever every day for a year. So finding ways to like calm my stress response and calm my fight or flight was kind of my only way through that darkness until I started finding out these other things. So I just wanted to share that angle, because I think it's something pretty powerful that I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life as I deal with this chronic illness and anything else that comes my way. But I was just really glad to see some acknowledgement and investment in how, we can help control some of the flares and symptoms through things as simple as breath. So I want to share and really appreciate all your stories, and what a what a short straw we drew, huh?
Thank you so much for sharing, Christy. And also a few months ago, I think back in January, Dr. David Petrino came on to a Kindred Cafe, and he was also talking about the importance of breath work. So I'm going to link that Kindred Cafe in the chat now for anyone that wants to go back and watch that, because it's really, really important and such accessible treatment. So that's really awesome. And then we've had a few, Vicky, if you would like to go next.
I muted right after you unmuted. So the reason I raised my hand was I have a question about two people, Cynthia and Jamie both mentioned mast cell activation syndrome. I'm curious, what tests do they do to find out if you have that? And the same question for the extremely high spike protein levels. I've not had any doctors suggest that I have a test for either one of those. I can't say that I've had a lot of, I haven't gone to a zillion doctors, but my story is that I was fully vaccinated in fall of 2022 and got COVID, and was it mild, had Paxlovid, got over it, and then started in on the long COVID stuff, which I didn't even realize that was what it was. But terrible headaches, migraine headaches, and extreme fatigue. And I was kind of coming out of it by the time I got referred to a rehab hospital for long COVID therapy. And just the day before I had the evaluations, it was 2 4-hour evaluations, I had my bivalent. I got the clearance. You've waited long enough, get your bivalent. And I got a whole new slew of things, very similar to Jamie's story, with the visual motion sensitivity, convergence insufficiency, the feeling dizzy, low blood pressure. And so I don't know, am I just on this ride of long COVID changing symptoms, or have I been vaccine injured too? I don't know what to think. But that's kind of my story. And my cardiologist does not want me to get the next vaccine, but I'm like, okay, if I'm 70, almost 71, I have had an autoimmune disease. I'm high risk for going in the hospital. I don't want to end up in ICU on a, ventilator and all that. But I also don't want to make my symptoms worse. So if anybody else has had COVID and all their shots and think they got a vaccine injury, I'd be interested to hear your story, and then the answer to what are the names of the blood tests for the high spike levels and the mast cell activation.
Happy to answer that. In fact, I just finished writing about that. So for the mast cell activation syndrome, they'll do something called a tryptase test. It's just testing the levels in your bodies. The difficult part about that, you go to an allergist or an immunologist to get that tested usually. Difficult part about that, it's not the most accurate. For example, I'm extremely severe and my tryptase was normal. So if you do go and get that tested and it comes back normal, it doesn't mean you don't have MCAS. Don't let anyone tell you that. It's a lie. Another test is a urine test. They do a urine test levels. And also know if you are managing your symptoms with antihistamines, they're going to make you go off of those to take those. So you really should decide strongly, depending on where you are, if you want to go through that nightmarish hell of going off your antihistamines and suffering for a test that may, and it may not be accurate. Another test is a biopsy test. They will do a biopsy to see for that, but just know none of that is even necessary. Your allergist, immunologist, if they're worth their salt, can go and just look at your symptoms, and especially some other things that you could potentially have already diagnosed, like if you have ADS and you have POTS, we know the trio exists, right? So, well, at least the immunologists do, and they can just go, which is what my allergist did, my current allergist, third allergist did, was diagnosed by symptoms, and so I don't have to go through that horrendous nightmare of going off of my antihistamines and suffering a lot, because I can't eat food without antihistamines, and my throat closes pretty fast. And so you don't have to go through all that, but those are the main three tests: a urine test, tryptase test, and a biopsy. I would recommend going to an allergist immunologist that has experience in MCAS. MCAS has not been around very long as like a well respected or known illness. So you're only going to go for the doctors that are newer. So it's been around for maybe like 10 years is something that they kind of even teach in school. So you want to go to the younger doctors. They're going to want to be the ones that have more actual technical like experience and less bias against it. And that hopefully helps you with that. What's your other question about?
The extremely high spike levels, which
Oh yes,
Amy-
Amerimmune. So Amerimmune, I do believe, is the name of the organization here in my backyard. They have created a long COVID panel that you can send to your doctor. One, I was telling Peg about that too. There's one that tests your immune system, like how reactive it is, or like strength it is. They have one of those panels. If you just go to like Google Amerimmune.
Can you spell that?
I think it's A-M. Wow, you're really testing my brain. I'm not even on prednisone today. Okay. Amerimmune.
Oh, okay. Amerimmune. Okay.
I think they're here in my backyard in Virginia. And so they created this really like good panel on sensitivities too that I haven't found anyone else have. And even for those of you that are having issues with sensitivities, particularly food sensitivities, they have a different kind of test that's not the traditional like IgE test that's been able to help some patients really suss out that. And as I was also telling Peg, there's another organization that have, and like through genetic testing, you can test what sensitivities you are genetically prone to be sensitive to, and like medications that can kind of help you and your provider figure out where you stand on whether you should or shouldn't get it. But then you can also do pre-medicate as well with, say, extra antihistamines, and know, say, like maybe a week into getting a vaccination, having a protocol of like some kind of immune suppressant, like what I'll take is a low dose of prednisone, if you tolerate those, to help bring down your immune response without completely negating the effects of the actual vaccine, so that your body isn't in this heightened inflammatory response for long and experiencing a lot of freaking misery. I am one of those people who had a delayed reaction to the vaccine, by the way, which is why I know so. So yes, you can pre-work with your primary care provider and or allergist a fail-safe / parachute measure of, is this good for my body, like through based on what how my body's reactivity is, how to do that. Since I do believe you said you also do like meditation or like acupuncture, one of you guys said you did that. One of the things I advised Dr. Petrino on to implement in their thing, because I'm on their advisory board, is to have patients before that vaccination go and do that meditation, calming, relaxation, whatever style that works for you, doesn't matter, to help bring down your immune response in your body, to try to get your body to the best space to accept it and not try to attack it like my body does.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. We have time for a few more questions, comments, but we are getting close to time. So I know that Deirdre has also had her hand up for quite some time, so I'm gonna unmute you. You should be able to unmute yourself now, Deirdre. Yep.
I believe I did that. I had a reaction to my Moderna booster in October of 2021. And I also have blood pressure issues, for those of you that were talking about it. First thing I had was shortness of breath, extreme shortness of breath, which I still have. The second thing I had was, as a result of the shortness of breath, was to go to my, primary physician, and he ordered a cardiogram, with me on a treadmill, echocardiogram. And they said, well, we can't do your test because your blood pressure is too high. This was 7 days after. And I said, well, gosh, what is it? And it was 220 over 120. And so I went through a whole bunch of things. I've had gastrointestinal issues. Anyway, it's gone on and on and on. The question for me is, I am because of my breathing, shortness of breath issues, I am at huge risk of getting RSV. And I'm trying to determine right now whether to have the RSV vaccination, which is an RNA vaccine, which is what all the COVID vaccinations have been. Does anybody have any experience with RSV vaccinations?
Anyone?
A tough question. I think what Nick was saying before is that vaccines, they're designed to activate your immune system, and usually that works for most people. And a lot of us here, that process went awry. So there's really no way to tell like what's going to happen if you're high risk. I'm personally scared to get any vaccine. My family's getting flu and COVID and RSV, and they want to get it all on the same day. I'm like, stop, pause. But that's something you need to talk with your doctor about. And there's really no right answer. Because vaccine injuries are rare. I do believe they're rare, even though there's dozens of us here. But you think of the billions of people that were vaccinated, and not billions of people were injured, maybe thousands or tens of thousands, or maybe hundreds of thousands, but not billions. So it's really hard to know how your body's going to react. And, I'm personally avoiding vaccines and just being careful and wearing masks and avoiding crowded places. And it's not fun. But it's a very hard decision because you don't know how your immune system's going to react. And it's quite, frightening. I hate to say it, but you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And so I think a lot of us have that question, whether it's the flu vaccine, RSV, or the new COVID vaccines. Like, I'm personally skipping all of them. My family's not, despite what happened to me. So it's really hard. It's really hard to know. So I think talking to a rheumatologist or immunologist or cardiologist, like, I would get several opinions and see what they say, or make lifestyle changes to protect yourself from that. Because it can be serious, RSV.
I think it's hard too to say with two different vaccines, but generally with the vaccine, a lot of times they still tell us to get it again, but every other medication on the planet will tell you if you had a reaction, don't take it. But for some reason with this one, that's not the case. So, when you're crossing over to a different vaccine, it's a different thing, but it's a strange, thing that it's still a lot of stigma behind it. So they're generally just going to tell everybody to get it, and they don't want to hear anything else. So it's a hard decision.
Yeah, it really is. They're sending me to my practitioner is sending me to an allergist, and I'm not sure what they are going to determine. So who knows? Anyone else?
Thank you, Deirdre. I know we have a few more hands raised. We're at time, but I'm gonna let us do one more question for now. And I apologize to everyone who didn't, we didn't get to, but I'm so grateful that, that this conversation wants to continue. Rebecca, your hand's been raised since the beginning, so I'm gonna unmute you.
Okay, as far as Christy, this is not what I was originally going to talk about, but I lead a breathing and guided meditation class for my senior center, half an hour every week. And if you're not familiar with pranayama practices, this author is fabulous. Essential Pranayama by Jerry Givens, a simple name. Lots of good pictures, mine's well used. He has lots and lots of practices from basic to advanced. So yes, breathing and meditation. But I just want to say, I'm almost 80. I'll be 80 in January. So this is no respecter of ages. I got COVID in December of 21 from someone who was an anti-vaxxer, and the symptoms just never went away. And last year I should have done more, but since, as some of you said, it kept coming and going, I thought it would go away, because every time it went away, I thought it was gone. Went away for 6 weeks in May, came back in June with a vengeance. I also have back stenosis in my lower back. A new thing was my middle back really hurting all the way around. So I went to my ortho guy, and there's nothing wrong with my upper back, but I was excited about him. He said, let's work on the symptoms. So he gave me prednisone and a muscle relaxant and PT. The prednisone was a miracle worker. I felt like I had my whole life. I laughed at my daughter. I said, I felt like I was 70 again. It was fabulous. And it wasn't over the top, but my tiredness and the little bit of cloudiness from the muscle relaxants were normal. If I was still working, I could have gone to work. As you all know, with these symptoms, with the fatigue and the tiredness and the brain fog, I couldn't have gone to work. So I called my PCP right away about the prednisone, because I thought one of the biggest research things is the inflammation left in the brain and in the muscles. And I thought that takes care of all the inflammation. She wasn't willing to go with it because of some of the side effects. Now, I'm almost willing to undergo any side effect to have a few years without this. I don't want to live 10 years with this because my social life is nil. And I have 18-year-old triplet grandchildren I want to spend time with, and it's difficult. So anyway, she's sending me on to a rheumatologist next week that I'm hoping will help. But what I did write in there, one of you talked about prednisone. What are the low doses? What do you take? And what do you think about it? And what are the problems? A lot, real quick. I'm sorry I went fast, but I know our time's up.
Yeah, we have about 1 minute, so if someone wants to
And I
jump-
love Dr. Jackson. I was on his support group for over a year. I'm near Memphis.
I was on prednisone, and it made me feel just as you were describing. Great. I felt great. I was on the step down. It was like a 6 pill, then 5, right? So I was on a step down. And I felt great for like a month until I crashed. And then I crashed again. And then I went to my rheumatologist in New York City and I told her that I crashed. And I said, the prednisone worked for me. Let me go on it again. And she prescribed it to me again. And I took it and I felt great, but then I crashed again. So I think in time, for me at least, it helped for the moment, but it didn't take the inflammation and get rid of it completely.
No, but is there a low dose continuing?
I also started on prednisone, a low dose, when I started triple therapy also,
Yes.
and then I got off of it.
I
And
know about Dr. Vaughn, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
so
I'll find out at the neurologist. Thank you very, very much for giving me a chance. And breathe. Breathe, breathe, breathe.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you. And that is time. Again, I apologize to anyone we did not get to. But the good news is that we will, of course, have another one of these. They're every other month. So where are we? It's September. Okay, so November about should be. And I hope to see you all there. And of course, as always, we will be posting this conversation on our YouTube page for anyone that wants to go back and watch it or share it with your friends. There was some great information shared here today. And I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be here. We all do. And I'm so grateful for this community.
Yeah.